Yes, sir. Welcome back to the garage. Gerald here with you. Of course, it is another Oscars-related countdown/ranking for you today. A couple months ago, I dove in and I gave you my personal favorite top 10 nominations for lead actress of the century, which would go back to the year in film 2000, or of course the 2001 Oscars, up to the most recent Academy Awards that covered 2024 in film. This time around, I'm going to give you my top 10 most inspired or favorite nominations in the lead actor category. Now, as I said on that previous video, when it comes to this series, the only real criteria is that you have to have been nominated since the year 2001 up until the most recent Oscars, and you cannot have won the Academy Award for that performance. When it comes to what I'm thinking, this is just my preference based on who got nominated in that year. And in terms of the nomination itself, when it happened, I can remember feeling that it was one of the more inspired nominations of that year, maybe one that we didn't expect, or one that I definitely thought should have won. As always, I want to know what you think, so let me know down below in the comments as you're watching this video, what are your favorite or most inspired nominations that did not end up winning in the lead actor category for this century. Let's get into it. Before we get to the top 10, I'm going to give you 5 honorable mentions that were in the mix, but did not end up cracking the top 10. Tom Hanks for Castaway from 2000. Jeffrey Wright from 2023's American Fiction. George Clooney, which should have been a win, guys, for Up in the Air from 2009. The late Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace, for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom from 2020. And the last honorable mention will have to go so close to making it at number 10, but it's near miss, and that's Adam Driver for Marriage Story from the 2020 Oscars or from 2019. Kicking things off at my number 10 from 2011 or the 2012 Oscars is Brad Pitt for his performance in Moneyball. Now, truth be told, as a huge baseball head, a fanatic, namely for the Boston Red Sox, which are making me a bit nervous this September, guys, I am admittedly in love with films that deal with sports drama, yes, but really when it drills down to baseball, you've got me locked in. There are very few films surrounding baseball that I don't at least enjoy on one level or another. When it comes to Brad Pitt's performance as real-life Oakland A's GM Billy Beane, which rose to prominence with the A's predominantly in the 1990s after having a long career in baseball, we got to see Brad Pitt tap into a real person, but also a performance that felt real and grounded and somewhat ordinary, for lack of a better way to put it. Pitt is known for playing these really extravagant, outlandish, kind of unbelievable characters at times, and it's hard to really find roles for him that are real world, like a guy you could be walking next to on the street. And we got that in his very simple, poignant, dedicated, and easygoing approach to his performance of Billy Beane in Moneyball. My number 9 is Bradley Cooper for A Star is Born from 2018. It's no mystery to anybody that listens to this channel on a regular basis that I am a super fan of Bradley Cooper. I think he's one of the best that we got in Hollywood currently, not only as an actor, which is what I'm ranking here, but also as a filmmaker and just a visionary. He's just a great entertainer, a great performer, and he seems like an all-around cool, down-to-earth guy on top of that. We get a remake of a very popular Hollywood story that's been remade before. This is not the first time. And he factors in a lot of human emotions and connections that we have that were left out of previous iterations of this story. He's also able to take this character of Jackson Maine, who is a very famous country singer who's kind of in the twilight of his career, but make him seem like the guy that lives next door to you or down your street or that you run into at the pool hall in your neighborhood. He definitely uses that cliche of they're just like us, but he does it perfectly in this movie, and I connect to his character and I sympathize with what he's going through. But it was also a crushing final act in this movie, not only for the film but for his character, because he did allow you to connect to his character and you rode with his journey the whole way. And I don't know how angry I want to get on this video, but as you can see on the screen there with the list of nominees, he lost to Rami Malek of Bohemian Rhapsody, which was a music biopic. It could be argued that A Star is Born was played like a music biopic, even though it was a fictional character. And yeah, that happened. My number 8 is going to be Bill Murray from Lost in Translation from 2003. This is my favorite Sofia Coppola film. Very similar to what I said about Jackson Maine and A Star is Born, Coppola is able to take Murray's characterization of this Hollywood guy who is also kind of at the end of his career, kind of over it. Bill Murray's an actor who I had known prior to this role for comedy, whether that's SNL, Saturday Night Live, whether that's his turn in the Ghostbusters films. I love him in a little stupid comedy called The Man Who Knew Too Little, which is like a spy parody. But he's just a silly, kind of slapsticky comedian. And we got him toned down, real. It reminded me a lot of what Robin Williams did when he had his turn in Good Will Hunting. And it was just not the same guy that you were used to seeing. And that was a phenomenal feat for me. It's my favorite in the categories. You can see the nominees there from the 2004 Oscars. Now, Sean Penn ended up winning for Mystic River, which was a great performance, but Bill Murray had quite a few precursors that year, if I'm remembering correctly. And like I said, it was a performance that really took a lot more, I think, from him whenever you get somebody crossing over from one genre to another. And I think he did it flawlessly in this film, and he's actually done it a few more times since then, including with Sofia Coppola in a movie a few years ago called On the Rocks, which was not as good, but he was still able to tap into something that he doesn't usually explore in that film. My number 7 from the 2020 Oscars is Riz Ahmed from The Sound of Metal. Man, this was weird because this was the year of COVID, and I didn't get to see this in the theater, and I can remember watching it at home with my headphones on because I didn't want to wake my kids up. And it was an interesting way to watch this movie specifically because the sound design is phenomenal. Riz Ahmed plays a character who is becoming deaf. He's losing his hearing, and he's like 95% deaf or whatever they say in the film. So this is a character that is a metal musician, a drummer, whose life and love, honestly, is to play music, to make music, to hear music, not just his, but others. That's his life. And he is losing his ability to hear the thing that he loves. And the way he captures that and the way he embodies the essence of what that must feel like. I'm not even necessarily talking about somebody that's deaf, because obviously that's a shortcoming that I can imagine is really hard to live with. But even more so, he's dealing with it as it's kind of happening to him in real time. It's not like he was born with it. He's going through it, and he fears what may or may not end up happening. The Oscar ended up going to Anthony Hopkins for The Father, one of the greatest alive, one of the GOATs. I'm not going to argue with that. It was a bit of a surprise in that year, as a lot of people thought Chadwick Boseman was going to win it, myself included, and I put him in my honorable mention. So this was a really, really stacked year. Might be a bit of a surprise here, but from 2008, my number 6 is Mickey Rourke from The Wrestler. I love a good redemption story when it's not oversaturated with the message that it's trying to deliver. It's a character redemption, but not painted as such. It is a hard watch while still being somewhat fulfilling to the viewer, at least if you buy in and believe in the characters. But Mickey Rourke plays Randy the Ram, who is a pro wrestler that was super popular in the 80s and 90s and has since, down on his luck, and he's should be well retired based on his health and his physical abilities. But he continues to do it because he's done nothing else his whole life. It's all he knows, kind of like what I was saying with Riz and drumming. And I think that there's a reality in this. And I know they had pro wrestlers as kind of research assistants in this project, but you get the sense that a lot of these guys and it's all they know, and they're very successful at it for like 20 years. Well, guess what? You're only 40 by then, maybe? So what do you do with the rest of your life if that's all you've ever done? And even if you could find something else to do, would you want to? Would you have the confidence to feel like you could do it because you've only done the one thing, and that's been your identity? Rourke is a bit of a divisive figure, I guess is the best way to put it, in the Hollywood eye currently in the last couple of years. And I mean, I get it, but when I'm just thinking of how I felt when I saw this movie, and then for it to come to fruition and it to get nominated and show up at other precursors as well, was very fulfilling for me. It was one of the better movies of the year for me personally. My number 5 is going to be Paul Mescal for Charlotte Wells's Aftersun from 2022. Talk about heartbreaking. Man, this one got me. I have a daughter who is 23 now, and we actually went on a lot of holidays together because she's a product of my first marriage and is a visitation situation. But her and I used to get together every other weekend, and then in the summertime we would go on vacations together. And even now with my current wife and my 2 sons, she's part of our extended family and goes on vacation with us. So this movie spoke to me on a personal level, on an intimate level, where I kind of knew what Callum was going through, Paul's character in this film. And when I say that, I mean I knew it, I felt it, really. This is another one where very similar to The Wrestler actually, where it the predominant message in this film, though, is not necessarily the redemption within the character that he's playing, but it is driven to the daughter-father relationship and trying to bridge that divide, if there's one there, and trying to make sure you are being what you should be for your kids. And if you're not, dealing with kind of the knowledge of that. And then you also have a wonderful performance from young actress Frankie Corio, and how she looks at it from the other side of the kid, that she loves her dad, but she doesn't realize the stuff that was missing in that relationship until she's much older. Because in the movie, an older version of her, I think 20 years in the future, is kind of reflecting on this vacation that they went on together 20 years before. My number 4 is Colin Farrell from 2022's The Banshees of Inisherin. Man, perfect casting. In fact, I got to think if the best casting Oscar, which is getting introduced this year, had been around in 2023 at this show, this movie would have most likely been nominated and possibly won, with not only Farrell, but Brendan Gleeson, Kerry Condon, Barry Keoghan, of course. Just a tremendous cast that embodied the kind of environment that they were in off the coast of Ireland. Just a beautiful movie. Farrell is an actor that I think is going to win an Academy Award literally at any second. It just has to be the correct celebrated performance or movie, and he's going to win it. In this film, he plays that best friend character that doesn't want to let go, and more so the comedic angle is that he doesn't really know why he has to let go. And the banter and back and forth between Gleeson and Farrell in this movie is one of the better cinematic relationships that I can remember in movies in the last decade. So touching, so kind of confusing, and Farrell really sells all of those emotions to us, the viewer, as he's going through it in the movie. My number 3 is the late Heath Ledger, rest in peace, for Brokeback Mountain from Ang Lee from 2005. A film that I've celebrated on this channel before. It actually made my top 25 movies of the century, my personal list that I did a few months ago, if you want to check that one out. Heath Ledger stepping into a role that was foreign to him. Same thing could be said for Jake Gyllenhaal, frankly, and really, depending on what the nominations had been, they both could have made it into this list, is that they just brought these characters and the torturous desire and love that these men had for each other to the forefront. They made it almost painful to experience, which was the pain that they were experiencing, not being able to publicly show their affection for each other, and not being able to admit, at least to the people around them, and maybe in some cases even to themselves, that they were each other's soulmates. And of course, by the time we find that out, and they find that out even more so, it's too late, right? Heath Ledger is a very quiet, subdued character through the bulk of this movie, with the exception of a couple really outbursty emotional moments from him that really showed the depth of his acting. And this was the first time, at least that I can recall, being like, holy shit, he's going to be one of the best we got. Now, of course, rest in peace, because the tragedy is, I think it was 3 years later that he passed away while filming The Dark Knight, which of course he also earned an Academy Award nomination and win that year for supporting actor, rightfully so. My number 2 is what regulars to this channel probably thought was going to be my number 1, but hang tight. It is Timothée Chalamet from Call Me By Your Name 2017, directed by Luca Guadagnino. Let me see what I can say about Timmy's performance here. The reason this resonated with me and really introduced me to this kid, first of all, ever since this film came out in 2017, my daughter and I went to see it because we see, prestige cinema or Oscar players whenever we can when she's visiting. And we were like, oh my God, both of us were just floored by the film. Timmy, yes, even Armie Hammer, calm down, I'm talking about performance-wise. And one thing about Timmy's performance, which is what I'm ranking here, it was almost my number 1. It was really, really close. If I'd made this list tomorrow, he could be my number 1. Is that it's a very physical performance from him. And when I say that, I mean the emotions that he has for Oliver. Very little is said from Elio's perspective in dialogue form. We get everything that Timmy is pining for, longing for, heartbroken over, happy about, from his expressions, from the way he carries himself in this performance. And to me, I can remember going, man, I'm riding with this guy for fucking ever. And if you guys have been following this channel for the last couple of years, I do. And the only one that could top my boy Timmy Chalamet, and my number one is Michael Keaton's nomination in 2015 for Birdman, The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. What we get here was a brilliant film in Birdman, but more so a brilliant casting of Michael Keaton. Because of course, in the late 80s and into the 90s, he was Batman, and he still is my Batman personally. I love some of the others as well, but that's Batman, if you're wondering. And in this movie, you know, his character was a superhero famous in cinema, and it's later on in his career, and he decides to take on this Broadway play and show another side of his talent, and it becomes a bit of a surreal personality crisis for his character, and being able to let go of the past and welcome in new experiences or friends, or hanging on to those that you should let go of. I mean, such a meta committed performance. And anytime, I've mentioned this before, this past season when I was talking about Demi Moore and The Substance, and you know how that character is aging out of Hollywood and how she's depicting that and how it mirrors in a lot of ways what she's probably gone through in her own life. And I love when actors take on a role, obviously they read the script, and they go, this is me. This is something that could have happened to me explicitly, or maybe has. And Michael Keaton, who's this kind of quirky, funny, fast-talking dude, took on this really poignant, self-reflective role that had to hit hard with him. And he takes that as a bit of catharsis, I would think, but then also gives a tour de force performance that was well-deserved for the nomination. You know, Eddie Redmayne won this year for The Theory of Everything, and I'm so sorry. I don't think Redmayne and anyone from his family will be watching this channel, but that's one of the worst wins for me personally, especially when you look at who he was up against. And in fact, that lineup is not good for these, with the exception of maybe Benedict Cumberbatch in The Imitation Game and Michael Keaton for Birdman. Easily, far and away, the best performance of that year among this five. Steve Carell in Foxcatcher was fine. Eddie Redmayne was a little less than fine, but okay. And Bradley Cooper in American Sniper seemed like propaganda at the time, and I haven't revisited it since then, so who knows. And I already told you, I love Bradley Cooper. He was on this countdown. But that was a weird nomination in my view as well. So the fact that Michael Keaton didn't win this, and wondering if he will have another chance to get there and to be on stage with an Academy Award in his hand, is tough for me to swallow, because this is not even close, in my opinion. There you go, guys. Let me know how off I was. I know you will. Also, like I said before, I want to know what was your favorite nomination that did not win of this century so far in the lead actor category. Please let me know. I've done lead actress now, which I tagged on this video for you, by the way. You can check that tag down below. And lead actor, we just wrapped up. You can expect another one in the near future before we get too deep into this award season, or I won't have any time. And I'm going to do my top 10 favorite Best Picture nominees of the century. That'll be the next one in this series. Thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you. I'll see you out here next time in the garage.